Hi, me again. Yeah, I know it's been a while, but as I said, I keep coming and going. That's just kind of my way. You have to bear with if you're interested. Now, I was thinking today, and I know I don't do thinking very often because it's bad for the head. It gives you migraines. But I was going through the list of my cars that I've owned, and I was quite staggered how many I've had. So I'm going to do this in a few parts. Look, obviously, if you're not interested in cars, it's just not going to be interesting to you at all. But if you do like cars, and you want to know my opinion of certain cars, then it might be of some interest to you. I'm going to start off with the Ford cars, because I'm not going to include the Jags, the MGs, the BMWs, the Audis, or any of those. I just wanted to give you my opinion of the Ford cars I've owned. I started off with Ford because basically my father was a Ford fan and he wanted me to pursue that route, which is fine, I understand, and I always wanted Capris anyway, so I was a Ford fan from the start. And I still am to a certain degree, but not like I am for Jags or MGs. But so I thought I'd just do a review of the Ford cars that I've owned. I've owned quite a few. I've owned a lot of cars in my time. I can't even remember how many I've had in terms of cars. And it's not just the cars I've driven. I've owned so many more and driven so many more. But we're only going to concentrate on the Ford cars. And if you like Ford cars, you might like this review. And I'm going to give you, I'm going to try and give you the performance statistics of the cars as I go through the review. I'm going to do it in chronological order. This is how I progressed in terms of my cars that I had in my life. As I said, because I'm old now. So I think the last car in the review I had, I was probably in my, let me think now, late 20s. Yeah, it would have been late 20s, something around that area, because yeah, I had 10 Jags and 5 or 7 MGs that I can't remember, a 7 Series BMW and an Audi. But we're not focusing on any of those, we're just focusing on the Ford cars I've had. Now, if you're at all interested, might be interesting to you to watch, and if not, then there we go, we can't have it always, can we? Never mind. Well, anyway, let's crack on, shall we?
Well, as said in my introduction, this is going to be a look through the cars that I've owned. Now, this is the very first car that I owned. It was a Ford Fiesta. It was an A-Reg, and it was a 957cc Popular Plus. Not the most elaborate of cars, I'll grant you, and to be honest with you, it's not the best of looking of cars, but to be honest with you, I didn't have any money else to buy anything at the time. This is the interior. As you can see, it's quite sparse and basic. My one didn't even have any speakers or a radio in it. I had to add them later on, but it served me well for the first year driving, and to be honest with you, it's probably for the best. Now, the next one I got was the 1400 gear. Now, it's a lot better inside, and to be honest, the performance by today's standard is slow, but at the time, I gotta say, it was a good little car. Looks like Cliff Jumper. As you can see, the interior of the gear is quite a lot different to the Popular one, and I don't know why they called it a Popular, because to be honest with you, it wouldn't have been popular with me if I had a choice. It'd been the least popular car in my library of cars. So there's that. I was going to talk about performance and brake horsepower, but to be honest with you, but this particular car, there's not really any point. There isn't really any performance. I managed to get 88 out of it downhill. It's pretty good, I suppose. And then we move on to the 1600 Laser Capri, which is a great car. I basically stripped out and reworked the entire engines. I changed the inlet manifold, I changed the carburettor to a twin-choke Weber, I changed the cam because it's a Pinto engine in that 1600 and the 2 litre. They're basically the same engine, and they have a tendency for the cams to wear. There's a problem with the way the oil was distributed through them, but I gotta say, I love that car. Then I wrapped it around a lamppost 6 months later. What a clever guy. Then I got the 2 litre one, which is marginally faster, but to be honest with you, it's not much to write home about. I said it's just slightly larger and do about 101. Wow. Here's the interior of the Laser. Had all the gauges, all the bells and whistles for the time. Had speakers in the front and speakers at the back, and you could alternate it. You could actually change the speakers from the front to the back if you felt like it. Ooh, flash. And they had 5-speed gearboxes, so that's not too bad, is it? Well, to sum it up, my friends, that was my 1602 litre Laser Capris. They were both the Laser ones because I wanted the alloys and everything. But let's talk about performance briefly. It's about 76 on the 1600 and 101 on the 2 litre. So they're basically between 9 and 10 seconds 0 to 60, and they'll do a range of about 100 miles an hour. By today's standard, they're really slow, but back then when I got one, yeah, I was dead chuffed until, as I said, I wrapped the other one around the lamppost. Right, the Ford Orion is probably one of the worst cars I've ever brought. What can I say about it? I wanted an XR3i and insurance was stupid, so I thought I'd opt for the Orion because it's a saloon, it's got the same engine, and here's where the problem lies. As a CVH engine, and the CVH engine is a pile of garbage. Never have I driven a car that is underperforming as it should have been. It should have had 115 brake horsepower. It felt like 80. I think my Capris were faster. Here's the interior. It's not very imaginative. To be honest with you, I regretted buying it from the day I had it. I had high expectations for it because I like saloon cars and I like 4 doors. And it had the trip computer, and I thought, oh, this is a bit flash, isn't it? Alloy wheels, yeah, big bore exhaust up on it. Waste of time. So 0 to 60 on that car is about 9 seconds, and it'll barely do about 110 if you're really lucky on a good day. So I wouldn't recommend them, and they rust like hell. And those engines, yeah, they're atrocious. So I went back to Capri's, and here it is. It's a 3 litre gear, automatic, with a vinyl roof. A good car with a solid engine is the Essex V6, but unfortunately they mated it with a 3-speed Slashmatic gearbox, which basically left you vulnerable to being overtaken by slightly smaller, less impressive cars. And it was a shame because it used a huge amount of fuel, had a great sound, but you couldn't utilise the performance basically because the gearbox wouldn't let you with 3 gears. Never mind. Then I moved on to the 2.8 injection special. Now we're on to a whole new ball game. It's possibly one of the nicest cars I've ever had. I love that car. I paid quite a lot for it. I mean, in retrospect, I wish I'd kept it because they're worth a fortune now. 5-speed gearbox, you could do nearly 50 in first gear. That's how quick it was. Here's the interior of it. You can see it's quite a bit different to the Laser. They had half leather interior. My only criticism of the injection special, it had a Bosch injection on it, and I would have expected electric windows at that point, but no. Anyway, those are my Capris that I've had. I've had 4, and I thought 4 was enough. So then I thought I'd move on from that. But as regards Capri, the 0 to 60 time for the 2.8 injection special is about 8 seconds, and it'll do out about 122. They're a good motor car. What can I say? Then I moved on to a Scorpio. That's a 2.9 injection Scorpio. That was the V6 with the EFI injection, not the Boss injection. And I tell you what, it's a hell of a lot better. But the problem is they put catalysts on it, so it restricted the brake horsepower to about 150, which is a shame. And then they did a saloon one, which I got as well. I think I preferred the saloon to the hatchback, because you don't want big saloons with a hatchback. This is the interior of the Scorpio, the original one, the Granada Scorpio. Lovely looking interior, had all the kit, all the bells and whistles, absolutely lovely. This was my darling, the Cosworth Scorpio. Now, this was the best of the bunch. You had power, looks and performance. I can't really fault that car. I loved it. And obviously, I only had one of them, but I'm just giving you another picture of another one as an example. They are a lovely car. I'll show you the interior. What more could you ask from a big saloon car? With the performance, I think, we'll get to the performance in just 1 second. You can take that in. The 0 to 60 is about 7.8 seconds, and it's brought to heel at about 138. that was one brilliant car, and I had probably, if I'm honest with you, I had that longer than any of the cars I've ever owned. I love that car. The only reason I got rid of it is because it was getting a bit long in the tooth, and I went through 3 gearboxes in that car, believe it or not. 3 gearboxes. Damn Ford. Then I thought I would go for a sports car, and we got the Ford Probe. Now, I've got to say, it's one of the most impressive cars I've driven for a budget, for a little sports car. It was brilliant. I had the V6 one. I don't have 4-cylinder cars as a rule. It was absolutely marvellous. It's based on a Mazda. Here's the interior of it. I mean, I really can't fault the car. I absolutely loved it. But there was one problem with it. The price of the parts. They cost an absolute fortune. I mean, I bought the car back in the day for about £800. I had 2 oxygen sensors go on either side of the engine that were going to cost me basically £800. So it failed its MOT, and I thought, I'm not having that. That was the V6 one that I had, and it had a 0 to 60 of just under, I think about just under 8 seconds, and a top speed of about 140. Slow by today's standard, but when I had it, I was quite happy. Now we move on to the next car I got, and this is a Scorpio. No, yes, a Scorpio Ultima. Nobody really likes them. That's a 2.9 one that I had, and the interior was absolutely lovely. It's up there with all the big prestige cars. I actually really loved it, but the only thing that I didn't like was back to the crappy Ford gearbox, and it's using an overhead valve V6 again, mate. That they come out of the ark. I mean, when that car come out, it was dated before it even started. So yeah, no, I part exchanged that for a Jag, but that's a story for another day. And then I moved on to this, the Ford Cougar. Now I like the look of it. It's a nice looking car, but it's based on a Ford Mondeo platform. I think it used the same chassis. I've never driven a car with a hard ride but with body roll. It's absolutely hilarious to drive. The interior is very nice actually. It's a lot better than the Probe, but the Probe runs rings around it in performance. I wouldn't have another one, let's be honest. Here's the interior of it. Yeah, it's alright. It's not too bad. They did a Mark II variant of it, which I'm going to show you, but there's not much difference to it. They should have increased the brake horsepower, because the engine could produce 202 brake horsepower as they did in the ST200. All in all, it's an okay car, but no, I couldn't recommend it. Performance 0 to 68 seconds, and it'll do 138. It's not going to win any prizes these days, but I suppose if you're going to go back 20 years, it ain't too bad. But there you go. I think that sums everything up about my Fords.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that review. I can't imagine anybody being that interested in it, but yeah, there's just an insight into the old cars, the old Ford cars, and everybody likes old Fords. I would have liked an old 1600E, but they were a bit too old for me when I was getting cars. But I never really wanted one that much. It was the Capri for me. But then I become a Jag man, and then yeah, there's no stopping me. So well, there we go. Like and subscribe if you're interested, and let me know your thoughts. Take care, guys. See you out there.